Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As we prepare for the start of a school year unlike any other, it's great to kick off today with some exciting news about our students. 10 years ago, barely more than half of CPS students earned a high school diploma. Today, that number is 82.5%. That is a record high for Chicago Public Schools. I could not be more proud of our young people, our teachers, counselors, and school leaders, as well as all of the community partners that have worked with us to help us get here today. The most exciting aspect of today's news is the faces behind these numbers. Data shows that students of color, led by our Latinx students, are driving this year's progress. And African American students, whose growth has also been on the rise, have increased their graduation rates by 4 percentage points since 2017, which is the largest increase among all groups in this district. We saw improvements across the entire city. This was not limited to one part of the city or one type of school. We've seen improvements in neighborhood schools, charter schools, as well as selective enrollment schools. Finally, after careful consultation with our principals over a number of years, we were able to make several process improvements to our graduation rate methodology to better represent the work that is happening in our schools. For instance, diverse learners who remain in school after meeting graduation requirements and earning a diploma will now count towards that school's graduation rate. More students are graduating, but equally important, more students are staying in school. This is why I'm pleased to also announce that we've seen a decline in our dropout rate. This year's one-year dropout rate is 5.6%, another record low. And again, this is being driven by progress among African American males as well as our diverse learners. Today's news provides the perfect note of optimism as we start a new school year. Starting Tuesday, it will be our job to help ensure that CPS students remain on track and we build on this momentum. We will do this by making sure that our students have access to a rigorous, high-quality education. We're committed to making sure that learning at home feels as normal as any other school experience. Assignments will be graded, attendance will be taken, and students should expect to be held to the same high standards that they receive during in-person instruction. We're asking all of our families to visit the new website. CPS's website is cps.edu/reopening 2020 to ensure that your child is ready for the first day of school. There are a few tips that I want to impart on families today. Prior to the first day of school, we're asking that families set up your child's CPS email account if you have not done so already. If you do not know how to do this, please visit the website that I just mentioned, and we have detailed instructions on the front page. If your child still needs a device, the first point of contact should be your child's school. We have also provided a parent technical support hotline. Please contact that hotline if you have any barriers to getting access to a device. We also want to make sure that high-speed internet is available and accessible to all of our families. Through the Chicago Connected program, we're providing up to 4 years of free high-speed internet services to families that qualify. If you don't qualify, we also have a series of affordable packages that may work for your family. So please, again, visit that website for more information. Finally, we have partnered with Google Education to provide a series of virtual trainings through the first week of school. It covers everything from the basics to specialized training. Specifically, we have training for our diverse learner families as well as our preschool age children and their families to make sure that remote learning is successful. Again, that website is cps.edu/reopening 2020. The message here is that we are here to help. Even in the midst of a public health emergency, we will do everything within our power to make sure that Chicago's children have access to a high-quality education. Our commitment and goals remain the same. We're looking forward to the start of another successful school year, and I want to thank all of our partners that have played a role in helping our kids become successful. There's no greater partner than the mayor of the city of Chicago, so I now would like to welcome Mayor Lori Lightfoot to the podium for remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. And I also want to acknowledge and thank Alderman Michael Scott, who is the chair of the City Council Education Committee and has really been a stalwart support for CPS and for everything related to education here in the city of Chicago, and is himself a parent of CPS students. This is a very special moment for all of us. We all know how challenging this past school year was. Our school communities, but especially our students, were dealt a very difficult hand. And yet, despite everything that happened, I'm absolutely thrilled that instead of taking a step back, our students still managed to take another huge leap forward in their journey towards achievement and success. Our record, and I want to underscore record, 82.5% graduation rate isn't just a statistic. It represents an important statement about how we value education in our city and how we support our students' future. Students who for years have been struggling under the weight of systemic disinvestment and indifference. And we also heard from Dr. Jackson, we had a record low dropout rate of just 5.6%. This is incredibly great news, especially when you consider the challenges that all of us faced over the course of this last year, particularly our students. And let me just say, of course, this didn't just happen on its own. It wasn't too long ago that our student achievement levels were going in the opposite direction. I reflect on the fact that I came to this great city in 1986, and at that time, the high school graduation rate was barely at 50%. I'd never heard of anything like that. And look at what has happened since. And I must credit, in this moment where we are celebrating this achievement, the hard work of predecessor mayors, Rich Daley and Rahm Emanuel, and their commitment to training, turning around the future of Chicago through investments in our young people, and it has paid dividends. Our students have been on a forward march that we've seen our graduation rates levels rise, along with the number of kids enrolling in college and receiving college scholarships. I also want to credit leaders like Dr. Jackson and especially her current team. They have made the investments and commitment to our students and our city's future. Dr. Jackson is a national leader and the right leader for CPS. As a student and graduate of CPS, a CPS teacher, a principal, administrator, and a CPS parent. There is no public education leader in the country who brings that kind of 360 experience and expertise to the leadership of such a large and complex and important public school system. And we are fortunate to have Dr. Jackson at the helm and particularly the team that she's assembled to lead CPS into the future. Our charge now is to keep this success going as we embark on this unprecedented school year starting next week. And I want to say this to every CPS student and parent and all of our stakeholders. We are not sitting this one out. Learning will be happening at CPS this year. In preparation for this unique school year, as you heard from Dr. Jackson, and you've heard really from us all summer long, we've distributed more than 128,000 devices to every student who needs one. I was down on the southwest side yesterday and visited 3 schools, and teachers and parents who care about their schools were out there making sure that the young people in those schools were getting not only devices, but getting the information and packets that they needed to be able to start the school year strong. And that's something that we've seen all across our system this year, and we will continue to make sure that we do everything that we can to get our young people connected. That's why we announced the Chicago Connected program earlier this summer. And so far, we've connected more than 22,000 students through that program, which serves as a model for other cities across the country on how to make sure that our young people are connected to free internet access. People from all across the country are knocking on our door and saying, how'd you do it? And that is, I credit Dr. Jackson, but also our CFO, Jenny Bennett, for making sure that this program is robust and that it provides the resources that we need to fill the digital void in our students' lives. Meanwhile, we continue to strengthen our school infrastructure, increasing access to college-level programming with IB and STEM and dual credit enrollment with our city colleges, and through hiring additional support staff. And let me remind anyone who has forgotten, this year marks the highest staffing levels for social workers, special education case managers, and nurses that we've ever had in our school's history. We're going to need it too, because as exciting as these achievements are, I won't be satisfied until we see every one of our students finishing with a high school diploma so they are ready for college or career and a plan on what their life's journeys will take them to next. And there's absolutely no reason why we can't achieve that. I've said it many times before, and I'll say it again now. The talent that we have in our classrooms is better than any other place in the country. It's here in our city's classrooms, in person and otherwise, that we'll find the next big thing that will drive our future as a country. The next big idea that will change the way in which we live and experience the world. That's the confidence that I have in our CPS students. Our future rests on our ability not just to develop that talent, but to inspire our students to recognize that promise that they all hold in themselves, to make sure that they have all the resources that they need to fulfill their God-given talent and mission. And I truly believe that even with this new challenge that we're facing in the height of a pandemic, that we are still positioned like never before to continue the transformation of the lives of the young people in our city. And I'm committed to doing everything that I can to make that possibility a reality. That is one of the greatest things that drives me every single day as mayor, is thinking about the purpose and the promise and the obligation that we owe to our young people, to see their eyes light up when they see their passion and they're able to step into their truth. There's nothing greater for me as a mayor than to be part of seeing that experience and how our young people can blossom and bloom. And so onward we go into this next school year with great excitement and enthusiasm for the possibilities that it brings. And at this point, I'm happy to welcome my friend, Alderman Michael Scott, to say a few words. Alderman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am happy to be here. I'm really happy because the last time we were together, I didn't think I was going to be invited because the last time we were together, I gave a scare to the city. So just thank you guys for bringing me back to a press conference. It's always good to be here to announce great news like CPS is announcing today. When you think about graduation rates over the last 20 years, and luckily I've been a part of that. My father was here several years ago and started that trend, but to see the trend continue to go up and to really escalate under the leadership of Dr. Jackson. And when I say leadership, she is a hands-on leader that the mayor talks about how great it is to have someone who has been entrenched in CPS in every level. And it is really great to see a leader here at CPS that I know has gone through the things that I've gone through as a CPS parent, student, and now somebody that works alongside. So thank you for the great work that you do. But it is great to see graduation rates continue to increase. But the one thing that is really important is to see our dropout rate continue to decline. Those are the sort of things that move our children through the system and make sure that they're successful. Not everybody has a plan to go to college, but if we keep children engaged throughout the course, then we will find something for them to do. I'd also like to thank Mayor Lightfoot for her dedication to the young people of the city of Chicago. Every time I'm at a press conference with her, whether it is about education, whether it's about parks, whether it's about any city resource, it is always geared towards our future and our young people. And so I'm happy to serve alongside of her and to make this road for our young people that much smoother. To think about the trials and tribulations that our young people have had to go through over the course of the last year, and to think of what they're going to embark on this year, it makes me very proud to know of all the resources and all the things that we have at CPS to make that happen. I've watched my children and my wife and my family get ready for this new year and watch them turn my house into a virtual school right alongside of what we've been doing. And so I know of all the resources and all the things that we have to do. As a matter of fact, after I leave here, I almost didn't make this press conference because I have to go to my middle school's child to get their packet. The thing that I'm saying is I know that there are teachers and parents and principals that are engaged in making sure that this year is successful for all of our children. The mayor talked about us not sitting out this year. We are not going to sit this year out. We're going to make sure that those dropout rates continue to decline, and we're going to make sure that those rates of graduation continue to increase. And I know this is the case because of all of the good work that is done, not just in CPS, but this administration. So I appreciate both of you for your effort, and let's continue to make CPS the best large school district in the city, in the country. Thank you.
No questions?
I was waiting to be asked.
Happy to take questions.
Happy Friday there. On topic first, if we could.
Sure.
And with the microphone, thank you for the reminder. So this question either for you or Dr. Jackson from some of my colleagues, how many of the graduating seniors completed a summer school program in order to receive their diploma?
I don't have those numbers in front of us, but we can get you those numbers. It's usually a small percentage of our students who need to take an additional course or two over the summer in order to obtain their graduation, their diploma. It's important to note that the numbers that we released today do encompass all of that work throughout the 8 semesters, and then anybody that would have completed over the summer. So we can get you those specifics.
Dr. Jackson, this is for you as well. Many teachers said that last spring they were giving students grace, paring down assignments and flexibility to make keeping up with the classroom assignments easier. How much of a factor, or was that a factor, in the uptick in graduation rates?
I would say no. I think there are a couple of points. One is let me take my mask off. One is that Chicago Public Schools, you may recall, had more stringent expectations around grading, which we took a lot of flack for. But again, as the mayor said, we refuse to sit things out. What's important to note about graduation rates is that these are cumulative. So it's looking at a student's performance over 8 semesters. So at the end of their 7th semester going into the school closure for COVID, those numbers are already baked. It is highly unlikely that a student who is on track to graduate at the end of their 7th semester would fall off track and not complete school in June. And so I would say that those numbers were already baked. You can also look at previous performance for that cohort of students, looking at their freshman on track rate put out by the University of Chicago's Consortium on School Research. We have seen these trends over time, and so it was anticipated. We're excited and happy about it, but these were anticipated results based on how our students have been performing over the totality of their high school experience.
So I think it's been acknowledged pretty widely that students learn better in classrooms.
Yeah.
I think you have said that as well. How challenging is it going to be to keep up this success rate with virtual learning being that much more challenging for families and for students and teachers?
Yeah, we definitely see it as a challenge. I think that the first thing is to make sure that we build the infrastructure that has that same level of support, but also expectation, which is why we are recording attendance, recording grades as normal. We are also working with our counseling team to work directly with our students, even in a virtual environment, to keep them on track towards graduation in college enrollment and attainment. The good news is CPS has been a leader in the use of technology, so we are going to leverage some of those systems that we were using prior to COVID to make sure that we stay in contact with our students. But the message that I really want parents to hear today is that school is in session. It may look different, but that we're not taking our foot off the gas, and it is critically important that our students not only complete school, but that they have a real experience during the time that they're in school and that the learning continues.
You mentioned the issue of devices. Some schools, are they still waiting for these devices to be delivered? Sarah Karp saying that she's hearing some are still waiting to get these devices.
Well, first of all, we have distributed over 128,000 devices. We know that there's going to be a continued need. We will have to replace some devices that may have been broken over the summer. We're going to have to reset some coming back, and we're set up to do that. But we have made good on our commitment to make sure that devices and internet, that those two things aren't a barrier. I will continue to point people to the hotline that we have if they have specific students and families who are in need. When I get those messages, people reach out to me personally, they DM me, we respond immediately. So I think my response there is if there is a single family who does not have access to a device or an internet, contact your school first. And if you do not get what you need, please contact the hotline and we will make sure you're ready to learn on Tuesday.
Question, I guess, for the mayor, if we could, shifting gears off topic here at this point. Labor Day weekend, Mayor, we know the superintendent's laying out his plan. How confident are you in that plan, and what are your biggest concerns going into the Labor Day weekend when it comes to violence? Is it protests? Is it shooting?
My biggest concern relates to COVID-19, and that concern is that people will gather in large groups and ignore the public health guidance. That's my biggest concern for this weekend. I think that the superintendent and his team have demonstrated over the last few weeks in particular that they have a very solid plan for managing violence on the weekends. It's not, we haven't gotten down to 0 shootings, but if you look, for example, at the details for August, and looking at a 45% decrease in homicides, a 15% decrease in shootings, I would say that we've got a plan that works. Obviously, it's got to be nimble. We got to adapt to the unique circumstances that are on the ground, in particular geographies across the city. But I know that the superintendent and his team have been planning for Labor Day for weeks now. And I think we've got a plan, and we'll see how it happens. But a lot of it obviously depends upon individual residents. Individual residents not tolerating levels of violence. Individual residents stepping up in the way that they happen and saying, this is a person in my neighborhood who's a problem. This is a person in my neighborhood who is wreaking havoc and acting in a way that threatens my personal safety. The thing that I've been heartened by, when you look at the increases in numbers of our clearance rates in homicides that have been committed this year, that has largely been driven by the members of the public providing detectives with information confidentially about who is responsible for this violence. So I think what we're seeing citywide is a rallying and a recognition on the part of individual residents that we all have a role to play in public safety. But again, my biggest concern, in addition to the concerns about the violence, is making sure that people don't shed the COVID-19 guidance that has gotten us to the place that we are. Social distancing matters. Wearing a mask when you go outside matters. Making sure that you're keeping the groups that you're involved in small as possible. We cannot abandon that guidance because it's a holiday weekend.
Bill Cameron asks, would you personally allow yourself to be inoculated with a COVID-19 vaccine before the election?
Before
the election?
There's not going to be a vaccine before the election. I mean, the fact that anybody either at HHS or CDC is saying there's going to be a vaccine before the election, why on earth would the CDC, the scientists, the public health experts, the epidemiologists be talking about an election? I would reject anything that politicizes our public health system. We need to make sure that we get through the phase 3 trials. We need to make sure that we get through the next steps. That's what we should be talking about, is what is the proper process for getting to a vaccine consistent with the science, not the politics.
Greg Pratt with the Tribune asks, will the reimagining of city services you talked about in your budget, or does include cuts to personnel in areas like tree trimming, garbage removal, water main repair, and other frontline services?
I'm not going to go into specifics because we're not there yet. I saw some commentary by someone in one of the local papers that said, Mayor's budget is short on details. It's not. What I talked about on Monday is a forecast. The budget comes in October, right? We are in the process now of engaging the community and our relevant stakeholders in the city council and others to talk about what the specific solutions are. I'm not going to play a game of speculating about what that is until we know, and we've gone through this engagement process. We'll get there, but we're not there yet. Obviously, we have some ideas on where we should be going, both in terms of making sure that city government is delivering services as efficiently as possible, and obviously we have some ideas about where we should be looking to for revenue sources, but that's got to be done in partnership with the relevant stakeholders, starting with our residents and our taxpayers, involving members of the city council, and that process just began.
just if I can go back to the just the violence and the shootings, everything you addressed earlier, how much do you attribute that effort to the increased focus, or the renewed focus, however you want to frame it, on community policing, and how much does Operation Legend and the federal authorities' efforts to go after some of the most violent members committing these crimes, how have those two factored in?
Yeah. Let me answer it this way, if I can. Cities across the country, and particularly big cities, have seen an unprecedented spike in violence over the course of this year, and particularly over the course of the summer. Why is that? Why are we in New York and Baltimore, St. Louis, and other cities seeing this rise in violence? And I think here in Chicago, the answer is this. When we think about public safety, it's not just the police. There's a whole ecosystem that supports public safety in our city. Of course, the police are a part, our federal partners are a part, but also the courts, the prosecutors, the jail, but also our community-based organizations, whether it's street outreach or people that we probably wouldn't say, oh, they're part of violence reduction strategy, but anyone who's out there in neighborhoods who's supporting individuals and families and providing them with supports, they are part of that public safety ecosystem. What's happened to all parts of that ecosystem in this year? Every part of it has been affected by COVID-19. The reality is that we haven't seen all parts of that valuable ecosystem come back online until really August. It started a little bit in July. Our federal partners came back. There weren't any federal grand juries that were open until July. The jails, for a long time, Cook County Jail was a COVID hotspot that was being talked about nationally. And there was an effort made, and rightfully so, to decompress the jails and put more people out on electronic monitoring. The problem, though, is, as we talked about, the people that are on electronic monitoring aren't getting the support and resources and monitoring that they need, because the increase from around 1,400 or so in February to now almost 6,000 hasn't been accompanied with additional resources. I don't want to dwell on that, but the point is that this entire ecosystem has been dramatically impacted by COVID-19, and we're just starting to see our partners that we rely upon for public safety coming back online to get to pre-COVID numbers and resources. So that is attributable absolutely to, I think, the spike in violence. You ask about Operation Legend. I think it's still too soon to really understand what that is. The charges that have been brought, for example, by the U.S. Attorney's Office, those are of investigations that have been long-standing. And, you know, again, having the grand jury system come back online, the courts being opened up again, that has certainly helped. Is that attributable to Operation Legend? I honestly think it's too soon for us to know that. And there was another part of your question which I've forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so much focus on community policing. How much do you think of that effort that has been, highlighted?
Yeah.
How much is that playing a role?
Look, I think the fact that we're seeing members of communities step up and provide very helpful information about shootings and homicides and other crime shows that there is a strengthening in the relationship between the CPD and the communities, but trusted, authentic relationships and legitimacy are not built overnight. You can't just flip a switch and have that happen. So I'm grateful that we're starting to see progress take hold. I fully support the superintendent's emphasis that any front-facing officer has to engage in community service, in community policing, and so that it's not just this thing that's a standalone unit within the police department, but it's an ethos that is embodied every single day in the officers that are out there on the street. I do think that that's important and will bear fruit. But you know, we've got to take the long view of all of this and not just look at this in narrow snippets of days and weeks.
Just have one follow-up. My colleagues at the Trib begging for one follow-up.
Okay.
I guess this is from Dr. Jackson.
Okay.
Has the CPS been able to connect with any of the students who were marked unable to contact during the spring? And if you
Yeah.
can update that effort.
Thank you for that question. We have been embarking on a pretty aggressive effort to reach out to those families that we know are hard to engage. We started with the families who did not engage in remote learning in the spring. We also identified students from vulnerable populations, justice-involved youth, et cetera. And we've been utilizing a lot of our staff here, security officers, FACE, Family and Community Engagement specialists. We've reached out to tens of thousands of families to make sure that they know that the first day of school is next Tuesday, to also see if there are any barriers that will preclude them from coming to school. In addition, we will have a process in place to take attendance on the first day and identify students that aren't engaged. And so that's why it's critically important for families to know you have to log on the first day. Otherwise, you will be marked as not arriving. We will call those families, but then we will also activate student engagement teams at the school who will be able to go out and knock on doors and try to engage families and students and make sure that they're connected to school. So you'll hear more about that. We are going to focus on those vulnerable populations that I talked about earlier, and we will also focus on entry grades, because what we've seen in other school systems across the country is that students in pre-K, kindergarten, and some of those transition grades, there has been some fall off there. And so we're targeting groups, and we're targeting specific groups of students to make sure that they're there on day one. So again, any help in amplifying that message that the importance of the first day of school will be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you.